Time now for our rants and raves, starting with Dan Kennedy.
I have a rant for several ABC TV affiliates that ran an incredibly offensive ad. Apparently, during one of the breaks of the Democratic presidential debate, and then right after. It's from New Faces GOP PAC, and in it, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is linked to the Cambodian genocide. Let's see a little bit of it.
This is the face of socialism and ignorance. Does Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez know the horror of socialism? My father was minutes from death in Cambodia before a forced marriage saved his life. That's socialism. Forced obedience, starvation. I'm a Republican.
Absolutely incredible. Now, the twist here is that we're still trying to find out exactly where the ad ran. I checked with Roe Dooley Webster. It didn't run in Boston.
No.
I didn't
Sinclair,
think it did.
Apparently.
One Sinclair, according to journalist Yashar Ali, who's been tracking this, one Sinclair station in Washington and possibly two ABC affiliates that are owned and operated by Disney and ABC.
Because they don't have to run those
in
ads.
New York and Houston,
you can
but not the network.
An advocacy ad, and that's what that was.
This is a taste of things to come over the next year.
It's shocking. All right, Dan.
Well, I have a rant for Omar Kelly. He is a beat reporter for the Sun-Sentinel down in Florida covering the NFL. And after the Antonio Brown story blew up, he was quick to defend him, going on Twitter and expressing really strong words that received a lot of pushback out there on social media. Here's one of the tweets that he sent out. He said, quote, "If someone raped me in May 1, I would have called the police in May, not issue a civil suit in September when football season arrived. Also, if they sexually assaulted me, I'm not going back to work with them after they allegedly apologize." And I mean, it was shocking to see a reporter write something like this. The editor-in-chief publicly sort of castigated him on social media, and then he eventually took down the tweet and also somewhat apologized. But I think this points to a broader issue where reporters are trying to have it both ways. They're reporting stories and doing the facts for the main publication, but then they're asked to do these sort of fun, personal things on social media, and this is what ends up happening sometimes. So
this can be a fair question to ask, but you can't put yourself in it.
You put yourself in it, exactly like that. That was wrong.
All right, who's next here? We got
I'll
Callie.
go.
Callie.
Okay. Go ahead, Callie.
All right, I have a big rave for CBS Sunday Morning, which I love, a show I love anyway. They have people who come on to do on-camera opinions. They chose Shawna Sexton, who was a survivor of the Odessa killings. What made this so powerful is that she is so emotional about it, and they allowed the rawness of her emotion to show. Let's take a look.
Good morning. My name is Shawna Sexton. I survived the mass shooting that happened on Labor Day weekend in Odessa, Texas. We can look for common ground and be willing to give and take. I implore our leaders to recognize this growing danger for what it is and act upon it.
It makes you extremely uncomfortable, which is her point. And also, the gunman had the gun pointing at her. The only way she escaped is she floored her car and got away from him. So she was making the point that something must happen. She said, "I'm not saying what has to happen, but you cannot go on saying that guns are not a problem." And I thought it was very powerful.
Good for you.
Yeah.
John.
Well, at the presidential debate on Thursday night, ABC's panel of moderators did a fine job. They had 4 moderators. They kept it moving, interesting questions, pointed follow-ups, and the like. But as you'll see in this picture, there were 2 people of color on the panel of moderators. Jorge Ramos from Univision, and help me here, I'm blanking on the name. I'm having a Joe Biden moment.
Lindsay
Davis?
Yes, Lindsay
okay.
Davis, yeah.
And they did a fine job with their questioning as well, except it kind of bugged me that out of the box, she asked about race, and he was asking the questions about immigration.
Yep.
Why do we have to have the Latino asking the immigration questions and the African American asking the race questions? It almost, to me, marginalizes those topics, perhaps for some viewers.
Yes.
And then they went on to ask other kinds of questions. But I get the idea that in a newsroom, sometimes you want an African-American covering the black community for valid reasons, but this was not one of those cases. No.
All right, well, I have a rant in general for the overuse and misuse of the term so-called. So, for instance, the so-called straight pride parade is not so-called. That's the name of it. And reporters have tried to start distancing themselves or putting a skepticism or their stamp of disapproval by using this so-called. Now, the bathroom bill, so-called, because it wasn't the bathroom bill. And a lot of people, we got pushback, by the way, from the audience if we did use it, but that is a so-called, because I can't remember what the real name of the bill was, but I heard Jim Browdy use a term today, which I had never heard, the so-called Varsity Blues case, which is the Felicity Huffman case. Again, that's a legitimate use of the term because that's sort of a catchphrase. But but we can't just start adding things to correct terminology just because we don't like it.
I don't think
we've been doing it on our air.
I don't think it's we don't like it. I in some cases it may be, but I think it's also because nobody wants to be confused that it's not what we said.
All right, gotta go.